questions.
Team news this week. Brian, first of all.
Team news. Hold on, I'll just send this text. I'll be there later on. You light the candle. I'll bring the wine. Sorry, what was that?
Team news.
Team news. Brett Lane is back from his grind strain. Stevie Ward's still. He actually ran this morning and it didn't go too well. Not mega bad news, but we were hoping that Stevie Ward would be available this week, which he's not. So we'll continue to monitor him. And I think we're going to run similar to last week.
Were you pondering any tweaks within the 17 at all?
Yeah, Jordan Baldwinson, who's done a really good job for the last 2 or 3 weeks, will probably step down and play with Featherstone again. He's done a great job, Jordan, and come in and really shown to us and shown to himself that he can handle at this level. So Mitch Garbutt comes back into the mix, but other than that, I don't think there's going to be too many changes.
What do you think you can get from Wigan this week?
Certainly a reaction. They've gone a couple of weeks now without a win, so a draw and a loss. So it's coming here is always we're trying to make it a non-enjoyable experience for people to come, to our ground, and I'm sure they'll want to try and get a W next to their performance this week.
What is it for you about Leeds Wigan games that makes the juices flow?
I think there's a certain air or a certain aura around a Leeds team that's playing any one of a number of teams that are genuine title contenders, and Wigan are absolutely that. They're the current champions, so I think we've had some real clashes with them. Certainly in my time as a coach here, and I know before my time, Leeds and Wigan fixtures have always been a big thing. But in my time as a coach, we've had some moments whether we've met each other in a final or in a semi-final, and they've been really tight games. They've always been really physical games. And one thing I will note is that the physicality of those games they've been right up there. And my players and my staff have been reporting that we've got some tired and busted bodies, after most Wigan fixtures, and I don't expect anything different this Friday.
You look at their squad; they've got some players coming back this week as well. I mean, not that you would, but you can't take Wigan lightly at all.
Well, I wouldn't have done anyway, and I think if I'm going to give their team, Sean Wayne, any credit, is that the juniors that come in will maintain standards. I think over the years that Wigan have fielded some weakened, what we perceive as a weakened team. They've gone and done a job. I remember a lot of kids came to Headingley a few years ago and put 50 on us. So I don't think, certainly we won't be taking them lightly if they do have 1 or 2 people missing.
Could it be quite a good watchable sort of game, do you think, style-wise?
Depends what you appreciate in rugby league, I think. It depends what type of game you appreciate. I think we're still relatively early in the year, and we're still trying to get some combinations going. I know Wigan, I know where they can be with the ball either. And 2 teams really that, for the main part, have been really good defensively. So I think it's going to be an intense game, and I think it'll be a compelling game. Whether it's one of those attractive games that you're going to cut some clips and try and sell it to sponsors, I'm not sure. I think to understand rugby league and appreciate some real moments in rugby league, I think it'll be that type of game. Does
the result or outcome hold any sort of real tangible significance at this moment in time, or are we still early in the season? Well,
not tangible in terms of gets us any closer to where we want to be at the end of the year, but certainly an indicator of where we're at. I think Wigan can be more confident about where they are at than we can right now because of what's gone over the last month. And if we get tomorrow night, and if we come up with the goods tomorrow night, again, it's how significant it is long term, I'm not sure, but certainly for us and where we're heading, it's certainly an indicator.
Callum Watkins makes his 200th appearance. How would you start to quantify his contribution to your team over that time?
He's been really consistent, Callum, and there's a load of I do field a lot of questions with Callum around Callum's game, and you know, I've said it before, and I keep maintaining it. He doesn't have a right to break tackles, Callum. He doesn't have a God-given right to score tries when he wants, and if he doesn't do that, people scratch their heads and say, "What's wrong with Callum? He's not what he needs to be." And I would say I'd agree with some of that if he isn't carrying the ball. I'd agree with some of that if he's out on the fringes, out on the flanks, not doing anything. He works incredibly hard for the team, and the game scores we get most weeks, he's in the right colours. He's got the right numbers around his name. And you know, some of the quality that we see is part to do with where the team's been at as well, especially last year. I thought he was great last year. I tripped myself up last week. I fielded a question from one of the journalists that said Callum hasn't scored for 6 months, and right at the time, this was after the game, I thought, well, that's not a good stat. That was winter. We don't play in the season. That was. I remember thinking afterwards, he's got me there, hasn't he, that fella? We don't play through the year. What do you mean you haven't played for 6 months? He scored a try. I don't know if he scored a try in the final game against Lee. Phil, did he? But he scored a couple of great tries in the mid-eights. And it was just one of those. It's one of those things that people just seem to be able to do at the moment with Callum and say, well, he hasn't scored for a while. Well, it's because it's winter and it's been pre-season. Nobody scores tries in pre-season, so I think he's great. I think he's been a fantastic player. Creates a lot for us, and it's not so much that he might be making the break, but because the defence is watching him so much, people around him are doing some stuff as well. Now, I've conceded a couple of times we've been a bit awkward and a bit jittery with the ball in offence so far this year, and we'd start to get it together over the last few games. And I'm sure when our game comes, we'll see more of Callum's, you know, crowd-pleasing moments. But don't misunderestimate the contribution he makes and how much work he does for the team. I think consecutive games now played without having a break as well is a big part of what he does. You know, there won't be too many players in the league who's played as many consecutive games him now without a break.
There's been a bit of nostalgia floating around this week with the 21st birthday of Super League.
Right.
I don't know if you can think.
Is it this week? Is it
Wednesday? Just gone.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
21st anniversary. Can you remember how you felt back then and whether the powers that be might have?
Yeah, I remember feeling buggered. Yeah, I was buggered and tired because we just finished a winter season and told to have 2 weeks off and get ready for summer season. And everybody's elbows and knees were twice the size, I remember, because the ground went from winter to hard. But it was a brilliant time. It was a brilliant moment, really. A really significant moment in Rugby League's history. A really good decision for me. You know, when you look back, I think it's been such a fruitful decision. I think our games come on leaps and bounds. I know we have our challenges, and you know, you'll be able to quote to me. I don't know, anecdotally at least, you know, where you think the problems are within our game. But there's a load of kids playing the game. There's a load of kids coming through. The strength of the competition compared to when we first started is incredibly harder now. The amount of quality players that are on the market that most teams can sign. Everybody's got a reasonable stroke good 25-man squad. And other than some obvious resource issues, I think the game's really strong. And I remember it, you know, in those first. I think Bradford Northern, our last game as a Bradford Northern club, had about 3,500 people watching it. And you know, then we switched to Bulls for a winter season before summer kicked off. We called ourselves Bradford Bulls. And our first real Super League game was in front of 10,000 fans against Castleford, I think, yes, when it was Bradford Bulls. And I remember thinking that's crazy how that can happen. I think we give away 7,000 tickets, but that's one of the things that the strategies back then. You know, you look at Leeds as a club since the start of Super League compared to where it is now. You wouldn't recognise the club, would you? You know, such a dramatic process it's been through. So very successful, but just in the whole feel of Super League and the crowds and the Friday nights and the intensity of the games. I think the intensity of games has gone up sharply over the last 5-6 years as well. I don't think anybody guarantees anybody a win anymore. Only Well, if you know a team's going through a really rough period or they're missing a certain amount of players, would you ever put decent money on a team to lose? Because, you know, I don't know whether anybody would gamble against Wakefield or Salford. Castleford, look at Castleford, you know, they've been at a turbulent time over the last 10 years in Super League, and look at them. So, yeah, it's positive.
Thank you.
Brian, how good was it to have Jamie Jones-Buchanan back last week?
To play 80 minutes as well. He's at the heart of all the grunts. He's at the heart of all that grunt work that you got to do. And Jonesy, as I've often said, he produces a lot of quality within that as well. So it's not just a case of head down, arse up, carrying the ball and making grunt tackles. He's got a lot of quality in his game as well. So it's great to have him back.
When we spoke to him at the beginning of the week, he wasn't even sure he was going to play. So how pleased were you that you did get 80 minutes out of him?
Well, you know, when you put them in there and they've got some sort of injury which you know is not going to reoccur, but you're not sure where they'll be after about 15-20 minutes in the game. And I rarely have to send a message out to check on Jonesy to my physio, and usually he say, well, you just go get a check on whoever, find out how he is. And you rarely have to do that with him because he's normally flying about at 1,000,000 miles an hour, saving tries or carrying the ball when everybody else is tired, and that just visually you know he's in good shape.
How good is it as well, the former Carl Ablett at the moment? I thought he was outstanding at Huddersfield.
Yes, visually he was good. Sometimes, and even myself, we make the mistake that Carl's had a reasonably quiet game, but again, you look at his numbers after a game, he's at the heart of all the hard stuff there, Carl. A fantastic defender. And he's starting to get some sort of rhythm to his offensive game as well. So, you know, he was a big part of the win against Huddersfield last week.
And Brett Ferris back now, his second game back. Got some more game time. You must be pleased with the way he's going.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a bit of a slow burner, Brett. He's after such a long period out of running. Really, it's not so much, you know, that he hasn't played the games as such. He hasn't missed that many games, but obviously we've had a pre-season when he hasn't run so much. So, but he's a quality player, and I think I was just mentioning to a young fellow this morning that when you've played so many games, yes, you need your match fitness. Yes, you need to sharpen up, but you get away with it is probably the wrong phrase, but you do. You get away with a fair bit because you read the game, and Brett does that extremely well.
And defensively, that's that second half. You had a lot of defending to do. You must be delighted again with the way that the boys did with that.
Yeah, I think they've had a real resilience about their toughness about us in D so far this year, for the majority. You know, and Friday night was an example. We've gifted Huddersfield a fair amount of possession, and had they been a bit more clinical, I said after the game, they would have should have done a bit more with the ball than what they did. But whenever they're making errors and we are in their faces, you know, you're not sure whether it's them being poor with the ball or it's us that's put pressure on them. So no, it's been a real pleasing part. I'd rather have offence to work on at this stage of the year than have to work on defence.
You scored, was it 4 tries in the first half, so you must be happy with that. Do you feel that the offensive side of the game is starting to get somewhere you want it to be?
I think, you know, the week after the ugly week against Catalans, I thought we looked really good. Then against Wakefield, they're a tenacious team, Wakefield, and can and will unlock you with the ball with themselves. So we had to put a stint in defence against Wakefield, but still maintained enough of an offensive game to be pleasing. A little bit more clunky against Huddersfield, but that had a different feel to the game. Huddersfield, I thought. Huddersfield have got a way of, I suppose, making the opposition concede penalties. I'm trying to get away with it here. We conceded some penalties that I just don't think we was in control. I don't know how you don't concede penalties with how they come away from their try line. And credit to them for that. Good on them with that. But that took a bit of juice out of us, and we ended up being a bit blunt offensively against Huddersfield. But in the main, it's coming.
Last time you played Wigan was just before you were heading into the middle eights, but it was an electric atmosphere at Headingley that night, and you put in a marvellous performance. It is another big game now, given how tight it is at the top, isn't it? I know it's early in the season, but it would be nice to get the 2 points off them.
It is early in the season, but I think everybody is aware that come round 23, we make that cut-off point, don't we? And you know, you want to be in as good a shape as you can, and you wouldn't want to win just for winning's sake, at the expense of playing poor, at the expense of using a strategy which is not sustainable. But at the same time, you've got to win. You've got to win, and while you're winning, you also need to be playing well. You need to have something in your locker which you can progress and keep building upon, and and something that works for you. But you got to win. I want us to win tomorrow night, and that's. I think by round 23 comes, we want to be as far up the ladder as we can be.
It feels like the season's just started, but after tomorrow, you're going to be a third of the way through that first bit of the season.
Crazy, isn't it?
How would you assess the first third then so far?
I trade a text every single year with Steve McGee, the kit man of London, and we was just London Broncos was my or Harlequins Rugby League as it was then was my first job as head coach. And getting to know Stevie's been around since 1980, since Fulham Rugby League, and he was always talking to me about how the season goes so quickly, and we talked to each other one week about, before you know it, it's going to be round 7, and every year we send a text to each other, and literally it's a joke, and we know we're going to send each other a text, but you blink your eye and it's round 7, so we're beyond that point next week, so it's been a crazy start for us. I'd like to say consistent and get another few games under our belt of playing well and being controlled and measured with what we do. And I think I'm safe in saying it's been a real consistent start other than that one game. I can't say it yet though.
Brian, doom and gloom for some a few weeks ago, but you look at the table now, quite a different story. Do you find yourself being equally cautious about where you are in the table at this point in the season? Obviously you just touched on that before.
Yeah. Listen, we conceded 66 points, so you can't really blame anybody for asking questions. And I got some of that you just got to take on the chin and wear it. So I wouldn't really say it was doom and gloom. It was just a case of, wow, where did that one come from? What are you going to do about it? How has that happened? Is it going to happen again? They're all relevant questions, aren't they? That we don't want to answer those questions sometimes. You don't want to be asked them, but that's the environment we are in. You've got to come up with some answers. I'd like to think that the players were on this course of improvement anyway, and I've been maintaining that. We continue to grow and develop as a team, but I think the league's that close. Take Castleford out of it, I'd still be saying the same thing. Take the Castleford game out of it. The league's, still volatile, if you want to call it that. A couple of losses, you find yourself at the wrong end of the table. A couple of wins, and you find yourself at the top end. So, that's nobody's rolling their shoulders, putting the collars up, and thinking we're all right now.
Just a final one for me. Good news, positive news for the club and Yorkshire Cricket this week with the stadium redevelopment. I take it very positive news where you're concerned and your players as well, that you're getting that much investment in the facilities here going forward.
Yeah, I think week by week, how we operate week by week, I don't think the players go to bed at night thinking, I hope we get the stadium. That's not how it works. We got our plate full at the moment. We're playing every Friday night. But you take a step back and you think where this club could be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. It's really exciting, really extremely exciting. And never mind where it could be, where it needs to be as well. I think the prospect of not knocking this place down and putting a new place on, and what could happen to Yorkshire cricket and the international cricket if it didn't get past is scary as well. You can't mark time, can you? You can't just keep treading water. You've got to keep progressing, and there's no way that the ground could stay at the same state it is, both for the cricket and for the rugby league side. So it's brilliant news, needed to happen, but also extremely excited about what it might look like in 5, 10, 15 years' time.
Brian, how much of a credit is it to the backroom team, particularly on the conditioning side, that when Brett Ferris came back the other week, he was able to play 60 minutes, albeit that wasn't necessarily the plan originally, and then Jonesy doing 80 minutes last week, that they are able to get out there and do that job?
Yeah, for sure. It's not to be sniffed at. That between Jason Davidson and Andy Barker, they've got a relationship there where Andy wants to slow him up, rightly so, as a physio, and make sure he doesn't do too much, and Jason wants to crack the whip behind him and wants to speed him up. So that their working relationship has got to be on the money, that they just get that balance right. So when he does come in, he's not miles off, but then we haven't pushed him so much that he actually can play. So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes between Andy and Jason there. Jamie Jones again, credit to Andy and Jason, but you'd probably give Jonesy himself more credit because he's a freak, and he keeps putting himself on a watt bike every time I catch him in his spare time. He's doing some sort of fitness training. I think him and Kev Sinfield had a philosophy in life, and it's not a bad one, that if they can train more than anybody else, they're going to be better. And it works to a large degree, but sometimes Jonesy will be the first to admit he probably trains too much at times. But the nick that he came back in, to be able to bang out 80 minutes of quality as well, is credit to Jonesy.
Does the confidence that's grown within the team show from, last week there was tries from one from a Brett Ferris kick, one from a Carl Ablett kick, the fact that they're prepared to try those things now?
Yeah, I think the long-term version of how the staff, as a staff, we manage them, Chris Plume and Barry Eaton, how they manage the offence and defence, it has to be, you have to go to tip your hat to it. There's not really there wasn't really a strategy or a game plan about, back row was kicking for tries, but to give the fellas that much confidence and skill them up, throughout the number of seasons that they're with us, to be able to do that, because that's what was needed on that play. I know it's a bit more of a coachy point, this, rather than a specific weekly point, that you coach your players to be just all-round good rugby league players, and for Carl Ablett and Brett Ferris to put on two similar players, even though we never mentioned it through the week, and it was never a strategy for us, yet they've still got the awareness, the composure and the skill to nail it. It's, we'll look at each other and go, it's good, that. We'll take credit for that.